Hello, and welcome to Introducing Me. I'm your host, Sarah. I started this podcast to get to know other people and lifestyles while discovering more about myself. Each episode, I will give a new guest a chance to discuss their background, culture, interests, or whatever they want to talk about to help increase all of our own worldviews. Today, I would like to introduce you to Larry. He is the co-founder of Gay Men's Health Crisis in New York City and the author of multiple books, including Confessions of a Jewish Wagnerite, Being Gay and Jewish in America. I thought that book title kind of summed up a lot of what he's here to talk about today, but he'll talk about other books, other great things in his life, so I'm excited he's here today. So Larry, why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit more about yourself?
Well, hi, Sarah. Thank you so much for having me here today. I've never done anything quite like this. I'm a little nervous. But I listened to your podcast from the other day with Lee about his struggles in trying to be authentic, be who he really is, and true to himself in a world and in situations where who he really feels himself to be and the ways he needs to express himself are not widely accepted. And, you know, it's been a struggle for him. He talks about his loneliness in trying to kind of be himself and become himself. And that's something that I think probably many of the people, or even most of them on these podcasts of yours, relate to strongly. And I certainly do and did. I was born in is Central Georgia the Bible Belt? I always say the Bible Belt, but I'm not sure that that's exactly correct. But I was born in the mid-1940s in Central Georgia, and I was born. I was Jewish and queer. Now, in those days, there was no even concept of being queer, of being gay. Those were not even terms that you ever heard. There was no context for understanding who I was in that way. Something was different, but it would be many years, before I would be able to even begin to come to grips with that. Being Jewish, on the other hand, that was something that was kind of scary from early on, even though there actually is quite a history of Jews in the South. And in our town, there were a number of there was a significant Jewish community, and there was a temple and a shul, an Orthodox synagogue, and but anti-Semitism is kind of everywhere, and especially if you're a youngster, you really kind of experience it, and I certainly did. So that minority identity was very kind of frightening to me. I wouldn't get into fights. I mean, it was, I actually did I struggled a lot to suppress that identity, actually. I mean, I knew I was Jewish, but I didn't, it's not something that I kind of put out there for people to deal with, including myself. I wanted to do everything I could to just be mainstream, to fit in, I think this is a common experience with minority people of all kinds. If there's an easier way to fit in, we kind of do that. And I had, I think I grew up internalizing a lot of anti-Semitism. I just sort of saw myself as an ordinary, regular person. I fit in. I remember an early incident. I was a little boy, and there was a kind of a abandoned house down the street, an old house, and there was a sign in the front of it that said, "No dogs or Jews allowed." Well, the boys I played with, they didn't really say anything. So we all just went there, and I didn't make an issue of it. I just thought, well, nobody's calling me out for this, so I'm just going to keep it low key. Well, I didn't realize that those kinds of reactions would be the basis of more serious and significant ones. And there's a lot of ground to cover, so I don't want to get too lost in which I can be very tangential. My writing is also tangential, by the way, so and discursive. I I became an opera person. That was like the first really great big love of my life. I absolutely fell madly in love with opera. And within opera, I fell especially in love with one of opera's greatest composers, Richard Wagner, widely regarded everywhere as one of the greatest composers who ever lived. From the beginning, there was always some discussion of the fact that Wagner was anti-Semitic. It was seriously anti-Semitic. But my friends in the opera world were, there were many Jews, and they had all kind of made accommodation with that, and they said that it was not in the art. It was sort of they drew this dichotomy, kind of bad man with regrettable prejudices, but great art, and everybody was able to kind of adapt to that, and so I did too. So I just didn't, I didn't really think there was that much of an issue. I mean, there were a lot of people who were very. Also the Wagner got very much exploited by Hitler and Nazism, so that became an issue as well. But again, everybody was able to draw these distinctions, and again, Jews are all everywhere in the worlds of music and opera, including Wagner. So I just, it was just fine. But, and I fast forward to my sort of early period of my coming to grips with being gay. And I met my life partner, Arnie Kantrowitz, who was a very noted and even legendary gay activist, early gay, pioneering gay activist, and who was very in touch with his Jewishness. I mean, he just didn't have any pathology there at all. And I brought him home to my apartment, and on my living room wall, there were 5 pictures of Wagner. Well, he didn't have a problem with Wagner. He had some Wagner recordings in his collection and all of that. He loved the overture to Tannhäuser, but he couldn't resist sort of he had a terrific sense of humor. He said, why don't you put a picture of Anita Bryant up? In other words, it struck him as odd that this Jewish guy would have all these pictures of Wagner, even though Wagner was great. I mean, was a great composer, and everybody recognized that. And it was just at this exact kind of moment that I was falling in love with him, and it kind of opened up this whole panorama of kind of seeing myself in a way that I never had before. Well, this issue of kind of looking at my Jewishness in relation to Wagnerism just kept growing. It got bigger and bigger and bigger, and it sort of occupied its own trajectory for the rest of my life. And this became the subject of my books. I developed a close relationship with Wagner's great-grandson, Gottfried Wagner, who's the only Wagner family member who really kind of became a serious, really outspoken critic of the Wagner family and its collaborations with Hitler and Nazism, something I hadn't mentioned before. That's a very serious kind of chapter. So and also in the more modern period now, this business of separating the art from the man, we realize is much more fraught and complicated than we thought. It really kind of permeates the operas. It's kind of all in the texts and in the plots and in the characterizations, and so the controversies have not gone away. They just kind of keep growing. And they've reached a kind of peak in the recent period with Alex Ross, the New Yorker music critic, has spent much of his major independent work time putting together a book that's had a big impact called Wagnerism that came out like last year, about a year ago. And it's very scholarly and it's got wonderful ideas in it. And he's very frank about the anti-Semitism and all of this. But when all is said and done, it's really just towing the same line of kind of Wagner apologism and codependence. And so I find myself really the only Jewish Wagnerite that I know of anywhere in the world who, many Jews, as I say, are involved with Wagner, and they're outspoken critics of Wagner, and they're really upset about Wagner's anti-Semitism and all that. But none of them has gone kind of the distance that I have in saying, this is really uncomfortable to the point of being kind of unacceptable to me personally. I'm not in favor of censorship. I'm not in favor of, I still acknowledge that Wagner was a great composer, but I don't really want to keep subjecting myself to that. I'm not crazy. I mean, I still hear a Wagner, performance or, singer or something like that. And I don't have a weird reaction. I can even appreciate it. It can seem good. But basically, I've really said that this sort of status quo of Wagnerism, where it is now, is really, it's more trouble than I'm comfortable with. And I would like to see the whole subject opened up more than it has been. And the world of opera and Wagner, this is something most people have no idea about, is absolutely sick of this discussion. They really want this whole thing to just be over with. Do you know, are you an opera person at all at any level, Sarah? If not,
I'm not totally a fan of opera, but I do have a degree in music, so I generically know some of what you're talking about.
All right. Well, let me just kind of at least get to this one point. So, the marriage ceremonies are often conducted with "Here comes the bride, da 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 da." That's Wagner. That's from Lohengrin. So there's no remote possibility of extricating Wagner, his popularity, his influence in the world. I mean, nobody is really looking to do that. I don't, in fact, have any simple or easy answers, but I felt that the whole experience was sufficiently powerful and singular that I needed to tell my story. Sometimes a person just needs to tell their story, even if it doesn't seem in sync with what others are doing or what others want or they don't want. So let me stop there for a moment and if we could take a breath.
Yeah, and I think it's great to hear that, while your thoughts might be different than others, like sharing your story is important to you. So what is it that got you into writing the books that you've written?
Well, this goes back to this business of what's basically your subject, introducing me, where a lot of us who just don't fit into neat categories. So there's this whole Wagner thing that we've been talking about nonstop up until now. But I'm also a physician, and I'm a physician and a writer. And I've been an activist, a health activist and physician. I'm best known in my communities and more widely known as the first person to write about AIDS in the press. I was the very first person who wrote a news report on AIDS. And I'm a co-founder of Gay Men's Health Crisis, which was the first and still the premier AIDS information service organization. I've written a lot about health, gay health, about health more generally. I've written a lot about culture. So I'm this sort of, I'm a physician, I'm a health activist, I'm also a writer. I was telling somebody the other day, I remember in the early days of the AIDS epidemic, I was having dinner with someone and I was trying to kind of figure out how am I going to do all this, be a writer and a physician at the same time. And she kind of stirred the pot by saying, and she meant it very, she was a warm person and she's insightful and she meant it, I think, with a lot of goodwill. And she said, Larry, she said, when are you going to be why don't you stop all this writing that you're doing, all this activism and stuff like that, and be a real doctor, like a community doctor. So these are my struggles. I go back to your interview with Lee, where he kept having to figure ways to explain himself so that, people saw these different aspects and things that didn't seem to go together. And he would try to say, well, this is who I am and this is how I am. So I feel that that's been an issue for me my entire life in every aspect of my life. I am often doing work in areas or doing things that seem to be incongruous or discordant with what people expect, with what their expectations are. Like, well, you're this physician. What is this opera stuff? It's Wagner opera. What is that? And so there's a lot of things that don't fit neatly together. And it hasn't really been, and frankly, I've met a lot of closed doors in my life because of this. I feel a little bit like Lee, but I also feel like, ultimately I had to find ways to be true to myself. And that journey has really, in many ways, been the bigger journey of my life. Like, how do you go through all these things and still find a way to ways to kind of validate who you are? So at some point in this journey, I stopped saying, maybe the problem is not entirely me. Maybe of course, I have to do more work to kind of put myself out there and express myself and explain myself. But maybe, I'm just an unusual character, and doesn't mean that I'm bad or a failure. I had my own experience that was progressive through my career of being in recovery. Recovery has been hugely helpful to me. At the same time that I've had this, so in addition to Wagner, opera, AIDS, Jewish, gay, I ended up, my field in medicine, my field of expertise in medicine is addiction medicine. I'm recently retired, but that is my specialty. That's a relatively new, young specialty in medicine, addiction medicine. It's currently under the auspices of preventive medicine. But so my experience in medicine, in addiction medicine, very much informed my view of a lot of things, including how I saw what was happening in the worlds of Wagner and Wagnerism. And as well, I was going through my own experience of addiction and recovery, which has been progressive at the same time as I was doing all these other things and all this other work. So I don't fit as neatly into single categories, as maybe I should or many people would like. I mean, I think, I was looking over the other day, all the things that I write about. I mean, there's just so many different areas. And it never occurred to me that that's something, to be grateful for and to honor and to, have pride in. Rather, it's something I feel that I need to keep explaining, apologizing for. I mean, I've gotten some real recognition. I mean, that's not entirely fair. I'm not really a total victim. I have had some real success and recognition for who I am, and I'm grateful for that. By the way, if people want to know a little bit more about me, I just want to refer them to my website, which is still under construction, but it's lawrencedmass.com, LAWRENCEDMASS.com. And they can find out a little bit more about my books and about my life and so on.
I will make sure to leave your website in the description so people can definitely go find out that more information there. Now, I want to know, you've talked about all these identities that you have and the different things you're passionate about. What has it been like being an activist?
Well, again, that was maybe, the pinnacle of this conflictedness, because I was an activist. I was a practicing physician, and I was struggling also to be a writer, to write about, cover the AIDS epidemic as a journalist. I ended up doing that for the gay press, which was an unremunerated position. It was a fledgling little marginal community newspaper and organization, and we were just all pitching in as we could. So being an activist presented a number of conflicts, and ended up having what's called a nervous breakdown, not helped by the drinking that was escalating at that time. I was hospitalized with a major depressive episode in the spring of 1983, and the basis of the Mickey Marcus character in Larry Kramer's play The Normal Heart, which is also a film. But there's a lot of issues and problems with that fictionalized character, but we won't. Anyway, that was a kind of pinnacle of the conflicts in my life of wanting to do and be all these different things, and not really being able to figure out what to do or how to do, to make choices, and to, I mean, if I remember thinking, if I can't write, I will die. And, but that's not what happened. I needed to earn a living. I mean, that was one thing. I also needed to get a paycheck. I needed to pay my rent. How was I going to work all these things out? How was I going to do all these things? And it just was, I was overwhelmed. And being overwhelmed about options and choices is something I feel I've struggled with all my life, and have continued to struggle with. I've been hugely helped with recovery, 12-step recovery, which has really helped me do the sort of nitty-gritty daily in and out work of setting priorities, making choices, being able to live with, disappointments, setbacks, accepting my life on my life's terms, trying to do the right thing, taking things as they come. So I'm in an infinitely better place with all of this. But being an activist, I think, is in my nature. Being a social and political activist is in my nature. The only place that I really kind of did this in a way that was, had a bigger impact was with health issues, and not just AIDS. It was also gay health more generally, and health more generally, addiction, cancer, hepatitis C. I did some kind of pioneering writing about hepatitis C, which wasn't being recognized or dealt with before they had curative treatment as they do now. So I'm someone, I like to be, I like to be someone who is discovering trends or, things that are happening and talk about them against the grain, kind of in a time and a place where people don't agree with that. They don't see it my way. And so I'm always, again, the outsider. Queer, Jewish, writer, physician, whatever it is I have been doing, I've always been the outsider. And I no longer, I see that now as a kind of insignia of honor, because I think that I've done a lot with that. But it's still there. I mean, I still tend to react to things as the outsider, and from that vantage point. But that's who I am. And
so you talked a lot about being an outsider there with all of these different identities. So can you share a little bit of what I'm hoping is some moments where you have felt included?
Included.
Yes.
Wow. Well, I think there have been many moments of feeling included, but not for the broader range of who I am. One moment came the other day from my closest friend, who is another addiction medicine professional, not a physician, but he's also retired, but very dear friend, fellow Georgian, by the way, from Georgia. And just casually, I was talking about my insecurity about doing these podcasts and this kind of thing, and because I had come from all these different backgrounds and I have all these different, and he just he's really in many ways my closest friend, and he just mentioned all the different things that I am and that I'm doing, and in a way, in a manner of affirmation. That's pretty rare. I mean, most of the people that I interact with, I'm interacting with them on some level of compartmentalization. They relate to me as Larry, the gay and AIDS activist, or Dr. Larry from Gay Men's Health Crisis, Dr. Larry from Addiction, they may or may not know much about the Wagner stuff, the opera. They might have heard about it, but so I'm relating to people in all these different compartments. To have a friend like Joel mention all these different things, and with regard and awareness, and it was just something so special. Otherwise, though, that kind of full recognition of kind of who I am and is pretty unusual even now. I mean, I get I'm more in the press these days because we some months ago we celebrated the 40th anniversary of AIDS. And because I was very involved in the early period of AIDS, and there were a lot of interviews and things like that. But it was almost all about AIDS and about, I mean, those people by and large are not that interested in this other stuff, which they see as more avocational. And another example that comes to mind that's not what you asked for, it's kind of the opposite, because those are the examples I have. I have a colleague in my Jewish Wagnerism work and writing who's actually a very eminent scholar. And I sent the manuscript of my book to him. to see if I could get an advanced blurb. And the book is kind of, it's all me. It's all these different compartments, all these different subjects. It's a narrative of me and my life. So he picked up the book. The book has got, Wagner and opera and AIDS and hepatitis C and gay sex and gay life and Jews. And, it's got, like 15 different categories. And he said, he just instinctively felt that there were a bunch of different narratives and they didn't really belong together. And my reaction, which I think was a healthy one, is that, they may not seem to belong together, but in fact, in my life and my narrative, they have belonged together. So these disparate elements that, if you're a screenwriter or a novelist or something like that, so you can't really do that. You can't be talking about, these things are completely, your family and AIDS and, addiction and, it just was it just seemed like, it's unnatural to go together in a book. Not that there can't be legitimate criticism of a book. I mean, I am discursive, I am inclusive, I am sprawling. I mean, but it just seemed, whenever I encounter that rejection, that kind of rejection, which has been pretty much global in my literary career, I take it personally. And I've always internalized that as a reflection of kind of, they must really be right. I must really be doing things wrong, all this stuff. There's something wrong here, and it's only with time and recovery and perseverance and that I've learned to really believe in myself and say, if they can't see the threads of relatedness of all these things, or many of them or most of them, maybe the problem is them and not me. Well, I mean, any writer will tell you they want to have an audience, and the best way to get an audience, at least theoretically, is to appeal to the most people. So it's understandable. You want to pare down what you have to say. You want to make it accessible. You don't want to get too overloaded with, you don't want people to feel oppressed by what you do. But beyond a certain point, if that's compromising who you really are and what you really have to say and what you really have to offer the world, then it is a problem. I mean, sometimes you have to ask the world to accept, a certain amount of clunkiness. And, as that, well, it's sort of like, I could imagine them sort of talking, saying, wow, that one's got a lot of baggage. Look at all that stuff. That's more than we really want to deal with. And okay, I can kind of sympathize with that, but I can't sort of be someone I'm not, which just brings us back to your interview with Lee that so moved me. I mean, it just was clear, he kept coming back to these entry points of, he couldn't not be who he was. And beyond a certain point, he couldn't compromise who he was. It wasn't about being difficult. It wasn't about being, narcissistic, or, it was about, he had to be true to himself. And that's been my own journey.
Yeah, and I think, those conclusions that you were coming to, that you were talking about, and the accepting of oneself and realizing like that it's not you, it's, other people need to realize that you have all these facets and that's okay. I think that's truly great. So what is it that you are currently working on and hoping for the future in your retirement?
Well, my partner of 40 years, the wonderful writer and activist, legendary figure in the gay community, Arnie Kantrowitz, He died from complications of COVID in January, and we had a couple of wonderful memorial services for him. We're going to be spreading his ashes shortly. And I see, I'm 75 now, so I will soon be 76. I see devoting a lot of my time and energy to processing our papers and memorabilia. Both of our collections of papers are with the New York Public Library, in long-term collections. And so I want to do that. I also want to keep promoting my books. My two books. The earlier memoir is called Confessions of a Jewish Wagnerite, Being Gay and Jewish in America. And it has a foreword by Gottfried Wagner, the great-grandson of the composer, who I've had a 40-year friendship and correspondence with. And then the current collection, continuing this narrative, the sequel to this memoir, is called On the Future of Wagnerism, Art, Intoxication, Addiction, Codependence, and Recovery. So it's sort of like, there you have the Larry Mast dilemma. You look at that title and you look at the subtitle and say, oh, what, aren't these really different areas and different things? And because of my immersion in the world of addiction, both personally and professionally, I've come to see many things through lenses of addiction. And the world of Wagnerism lends itself to these perspectives like nothing else in art. There is nothing comparable to the cultism of Wagnerism that is out there. It is absolutely singular. It is truly impressive. And there are many aspects of addiction that are pertinent to observing what goes on in that world and what the concerns are about it. I talk about these things not only technically, but also personally, as I've experienced them in my life, but also with regard to my own life experience and my family, issues of intoxication, addiction, and especially codependence. Codependence is, remember I told you about putting the 5 pictures of Wagner on the wall? That's codependence. It's when you are kind of over compensating for, it's too much, what is that you're doing? It's sort of like somebody treats you badly, and so you treat them all the better. Someone, shames you or insults you, and you end up, being even nicer and to them. Sometimes codependent behavior is just love, and it's a good thing. It's wisdom. It's not always a bad thing, but sometimes it's conspicuous. Like, what is this? I mean, that I loved Wagner was one thing, but this Jewish Wagnerite with 5 pictures of Wagner and stuff. I mean, I was totally in love with Wagner. I mean, it was like the first great love of my life. And the whole thing was like, there was, it was clinical in retrospect. That's a term we use in medicine. It was clinical. It was like something you'd write up in a psychiatric textbook, even though on the surface, it all seemed kind of, normal. I mean, everybody in the opera, reveres Wagner. And that got me going on my journey. So of talking about these things at a level that they really are not otherwise being talked about. I was asked the other day, what's going to be your next book? I don't have a next book. My little sort of dirty secret about Wagner is that he continues to be my muse in a way. And in other words, for all of my kind of, criticism and sort of looking at this world very, in terms of pathology and everything, somehow my immersion in this subject continues to stimulate me as an observer and as a writer. So I do not see myself writing another Wagnerism book, but I don't really know. I probably will continue to do some writing, and it'll probably be a mix of things like it always has been: medicine, culture, music, opera, maybe even some more Wagner. I don't know.
Now, I am curious, since you obviously have all of these passions, what sort of like official degrees and studying have you done?
Well, I'm an MD. I'm a physician. I received my MD in 1973 from University of Illinois, Abraham Lincoln School of Medicine. I did my residency in anesthesiology at Massachusetts General Hospital in association with Harvard Medical School. That was 73 to 76. And then that's when I realized that I wanted two things more than anything else in the world. I wanted to move to New York from Boston. Boston was not home. New York was always home. I always knew that. And I got there. And I wanted to write. And I wanted to write about a whole range of things. By the way, I used to write about opera when I was much younger, and I was universally discouraged by my opera friends. I never got encouragement for any of this work from any of my opera friends. This was my world, my sort of subculture. I think they just thought I was, they didn't think I had any talent. They didn't like what I had to say. They were discouraging. They were just, I mean, they're so, and these are things that I look at in my own writing. I don't feel any bitterness about it, but I do think the opera world is one that invites a level of scrutiny that it doesn't often get. It's a kind of a strange world, and it's a bit troubled in various ways. There's much that's good about it. It's very kind of archaic. I mean, if you think about opera, you think, oh, geez, it's like going to the museum. But anyway, but I've done a lot of writing about all this now. I've kind of had my say, and I do want to continue to try to put it out there. I mean, this podcast today is an opportunity to try to do that, and so that's. Oh, you asked. So, in terms of degrees, well, I was in the first group of physicians to become board certified in addiction medicine. That whole process of board certification is something that kept graduating because it's a new field, and it may be a different setup now, but in preventive medicine. But so I was an undergrad at the University of California at Berkeley. I graduated in the class of 1969 with honors in my major, which was English. And there, my senior honors thesis was on the romantification of the Shakespeare operas, of Shakespeare's plays by Verdi in his 3 Shakespeare operas. It was a pretty substantial thing that I did, but again, not having not the world of opera. I mean, it's basically it's about fandom. It's about very superficial levels of communication and group experience. They don't want, by and large, they don't want heaviness, And the world of they don't want people who are getting too I mean, like all my work on Wagnerism and anti-Semitism and all that stuff like that, they're really, opera is kind of it's a group bonding spiritual experience. It's got its own kind of language and magic. The worlds of politics and social concerns and all these things are frequently very unwelcome. I mean, they are present. They, if you go to many places, they do these sort of deconstructive modern productions of operas, and including Wagner, where their settings are in Nazi Germany and this kind of thing, But it's still the rules of involvement and belonging and participation and recognition are still pretty stodgy and kind of old-fashioned. Anyway.
Well, I appreciate you sharing your degrees there. I think it's fascinating to kind of hear how people navigate their interests when they're younger and what that is all turned into. So before I wrap things up, is there anything else that you would like to share with the listeners today?
Just the general wisdom that I think is your show is really all about. With the subject is that believe in yourself, be true to yourself. This is something you hear all over the place all the time, but it can take a lifetime for you to realize how true it is. And that's my experience. It feels like it's taken a lifetime for me to see that it's true, that I can really value myself and honor myself and show up for myself. It might seem like I did a lot of these things, I was doing it all along, but in terms of really feeling it, that has been a progressive development, and I urge everybody to do it. Don't give up on yourself, your dreams, your visions, your beliefs. Cherish them.
That is some great wisdom to share. Now, with all of my guests at the end, I do ask a random question. So my question today is simply, when are you most productive?
At 4:30 a.m. I'm a morning person. And that's my pattern. I wish I could sleep more. But when I found myself having to earn, I realized I was going to have to work for the rest of my life. I wanted to do my writing more than anything else. I thought I would die if I couldn't, but I realized I had to work. I had to have a day job. And I did that. And the only way I was going to be able to do my writing was the extremely difficult challenge of carving out early morning time before I went to work to get my writing done. It was a monumental commitment, but it's, it was either do or die. And I chose to do, and that's been the trajectory of my life. And that is my special time that still, I'm not working now, but I still get up at 4, I'm at the typewriter I'm at the computer by 4:30, and that's my secret time and space.
All right, that brings this episode to a close. As I mentioned, I will be leaving Larry's website in the description, so that brings you to all of the great things that he's doing. So lots of links within that website and lots of good information there. So feel free to go check all of that out, and his newest book that he talked about as well. And of course, if you would like to connect with the podcast, our website is also in the description. That brings you to all of our social media, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn, It brings you to all of our past websites, all of the resources from past guests, and everything good there. And if you'd like to connect with me or be a guest on the podcast, the email is also in the description, along with a link to support the podcast monetarily if you would like to do that. So thank you, Larry, so much for spending time with me today, and to my listeners for taking the time out of your day to hear a new story. Until next time, bye.
Bye, Sarah. Thanks so much.